The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us again here on another episode of The Lockup. With me, we have a multi-time tag team champion, multi-time light heavyweight and heavyweight champion. We have with us the native nightmare, Jeremy Lightfoot. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you? Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure to have you here with us today. Now, you have been wrestling for 24 years. I mean, that is quite the accomplishment.
I've been involved with professional wrestling roughly my entire life. My father was a pretty big manager in the Midwest. My grandfather is Danny Little Bear, who used to wrestle at the Chase at St. Louis. Long history of professional wrestling.
Great.
But myself, I've been involved for 24 years.
So I guess you could say it's a family tradition.
Pretty much.
So now you are the youngest licensed, you were at least at one point the youngest licensed wrestler in the state of Missouri. Is that correct?
Yeah. 1997. 97. I got my first professional wrestling license because obviously some states around the country you need to get regulated and licensed. And Missouri, I was the youngest one at the time. I believe when Matt Seidel came along in 2000, he beat my record. I was 16, he was 15. And before that, the record holder was Keith Smith Jr. of the famous Smith family from St. Louis.
Wow. Now, which did you get first? Did you get your driver's license or your wrestling license first?
My wrestling license first. I could body slam somebody, but I couldn't drive a car.
So, I can imagine, everyone's going to school. Hey, I got my driver's permit. I got my wrestling license. I mean, back then that was, right at the height of, Stone Cold and the Monday Night Wars. So that's a big deal back then.
Yeah, I had a lot to choose from as far as what to study, even though my study history goes all the way back to the NWA, guys like Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, the Legion of Doom, Four Horsemen. That was my cup of tea. But yeah, right as I was getting into the business, I had a really good move set to choose from both sides with the Monday Night Wars. Great.
Who did you idolize growing up? Outside family, of course. Which wrestlers did you idol?
Anybody that wore war paint, strangely enough, even though I come from a heavy Native American family, I loved guys like Sting and the Ultimate Warrior and the Legion of Doom. But as far as wrestlers that I tried to model myself after, at least in my early career, was Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. I love the way he performed an arm drag. To this day, there's nobody that can perform an arm drag like that man. But yeah, that mainly anybody from the NWA. Those were my reasons for wanting to join the family business.
Great. Now, what was it like? You're 16. You're going to your first. Did you start wrestling school at 16 as well?
No, I started training at 14. My very first match was at 16.
Great. So what was it like when you first started training? Was it more than expected, or was it like pretty much right what you expected?
Way more than what I expected. Way more. The physical aspects were just insane. The massive amounts of food you had to eat, the massive amounts you had to go to the gym, the thousands of things you had to do before you even looked at a wrestling ring. And when I trained, the first thing we did was set up the wrestling ring. Unfortunately, I didn't join a wrestling school until 99. And my training was on site. I would do music for the night, or I would sit in as event staff or sell popcorn or whatever. But for the time that the guys were there before we opened the door, that was my training. So setting up the ring, jogging around the building, sit-ups, Hindu squats, it was way more intense than what I thought it would ever be.
Now, just out of kind of curiosity, you mentioned you did a lot of the small jobs before you were able to get into the ring. That's sales, music, of all those, small but still very important jobs. Which one was your favorite?
I loved running the music. When I first started with Rampage Championship Wrestling, and I was just a fan. My dad was doing a couple spot shows, and I would go and sit and watch. It annoyed me for some reason. Music was my very first passion in life. I've been playing drums since I was 5. And it annoyed me that they would bring the wrestler to the ring and they would just stop his music. And then they would play the next guys. And it was like, come on, fade it out, fade it back in, fade it down so that the announcer can announce it. Give me some pizzazz. And so when I started running music for RCW, I told the promoter, I said, you're going to hear something completely different tonight. And probably hindered my wrestling career for a couple months because they loved me doing music so much. They were like, yeah, we're not training you tonight. You need to get the music together.
So that's the bad side of, when you do really good at one job, but you want to do another.
Right. Exactly. But I've done everything from co-promote to referee, run lights, run the gorilla position, run sound. I've even, interviewed people from time to time, managed. Really isn't too many jobs in wrestling that I haven't done.
On the more backstage production side, what's the hardest job to do?
Getting people prepared, getting everybody ready. Everybody has their own mental mindset that they're trying to get into. They're trying to think about what moves they're going to do. They're trying to think about different high spots and everything else. And I hate to be the one to, tell them, hey, come on, let's get on deck, get in gorilla, you're up. Because I feel as if I'm breaking their concentration. But unfortunately, if that's the job you've been given, that's what you have to do. But yeah, doing running gorilla has probably been one of the toughest jobs that I've ever had to do.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Who's been, go if you think all the way, to the top promotions, all the way down to the indies, what song or who has had the best entrance theme music, do you think?
It was never a big time wrestler. I was a huge fan of Bodily Harm, and they came out to Unforgivable Sin by Ozzy Osbourne. And just every time I heard that bass drum and then that first guitar riff slide down the neck, I still get chills. My arms are lighting up now just thinking about it. And they were a heel tag team. I've always been a baby, and I always popped for them when I heard that music, which is part of the reason why I use Iron Man. For some reason, just a hard driven bass drum to get people clapping along to. So yeah, Bodily Harm inspired me big time when it came to music.
Nice. Do you ever listen to the radio and go, oh, this would make a great wrestling entrance theme song?
Yeah, from about age 19 till now, unfortunately. And we had a guy that used to mix music for us. His name was Tim Johns. And I know for at least 10 years, I drove that poor man up the wall, because on the indies, you have control of what you're going to come to the ring to. And I would constantly hear, mix this with this and put this with this. And right as this E chord hits, I want you to do. He's like, man, I just mixed your music yesterday. Can you at least use it first? So yeah, music was a very big inspiration for me. Great.
So let's move along. Let's talk about your first match. How was it?
It was roughly about 2 minutes long. My first match wasn't even supposed to be my first match. I got lucky, and somebody didn't show up. Their car wouldn't start or something, and the promoter said, "Do you have gear?" And I said, "No, I all I have is my name." Luckily I've wrestled with my real name, over the, I've used different monikers and aliases, but I've always used Jeremy Lightfoot because I was always afraid if somebody called my name and I wouldn't respond, then that would give it away. But I said, no, I don't have any gear. So all the guys in the locker room, they're like, well, here, I got a pair of tights that'll fit him. Here, I got an extra pair of boots. Let's dice this shirt up. And my outfit was so 1980s. I had a black shirt. It was cut up to the front where it was fringed off the stomach, and it was fringed off the sleeves. I had a pair of black tights and black and white wrestling boots. And I got the hell beat out of me for like 2 minutes. But it was the most thrilling moment of my life, hearing the roar of the crowd, people going nuts the moment I got in the ring, people oohing and ahhing at every bump that I took. It was an addiction. It's the greatest high ever. I don't care what drug, I don't care what alcohol, nicotine, caffeine, it doesn't matter. There is no drug greater than people cheering you or booing you when you're doing your job.
People that appreciate you for what you're doing, putting your body on the line. There's nothing better.
Yeah, it's always been. I retired in 2011 for a small stint, and I caught myself craving that. When I would I would drive by a baseball field and hear the fans cheering the kids or cheering the teams. That's the closest I could understand to an addict, like somebody who quit smoking and then somebody lights up a cigarette next to him. I just crave that noise.
Kind of how you imagine, a top, sports star retires and it comes time, that training camp time of the year, and then you hear how they get that itch again, and then they come back right before the season starts.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So what are some of the promotions that you've worked for? Some of the big ones that you've really, had long stints in or memorable moments?
The biggest promotions that I've worked for, I was a member of the NWA for a while, which was an honor because I grew up watching that. And when they started selling the branches, a guy in Kansas City, Missouri had bought a NWA branch. And just to be able to log on to their website and see that I was one of their top lightweights, and it said, had the National Wrestling Alliance symbol above it, that was really cool. Also, I wrestled for the MMWA out of St. Louis. It is the oldest and longest running promotion in St. Louis. I was their heavyweight champion and 2-time lightweight champion. And being in that building, you can taste, smell, and feel the history of that building. And knowing the guys like Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, the Killer Bees, they all came through that building. And you're walking through the same gorilla position that they did. I was one of the last guys to hold the original lightweight title before they actually started getting the newer looking belts. Excuse me. But that was one of the high points of my career, was working for MMWA, which was also an offspring of NWA with Sam Mushnick back in the day.
Yeah, I can only imagine that high, just wrestling in general, and then knowing you're going through the same curtain or the same arena, as Dusty and all the other big names that have gone through there.
Yeah, it's impressive. The promoter, he knew I was what I guess today's term would be mark, and he knew I was a big mark for the NWA. So as I would be walking through and he's giving me my last minute instructions, well, kid, just remember Flair leaned on that same wall. And I'm like, oh, don't do that to me,
I'm nervous enough because it didn't stop.
Right, yeah. I've got to pee again.
Have you ever gotten to wrestle somebody that you watched growing up?
Yeah. Actually, one of the guys that helped train me, I was fortunate enough to finally get in the ring with Bob Orton. That's one of my claims to fame is Bob Orton Jr. trained me. And then before Randy went to OVW, me and a select other few helped train him to get him ready. And when I actually got to step into the ring with Bob, that was pretty cool. I mean, it only lasted, I think, about 4 or 5 minutes, but the whole time I'm begging, just come on, hit me. Well, you're supposed to hit me. No, hit me. I want you to hit me. I'm not hitting you. I don't care what the promoter said.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be a great feeling, though. Especially now you see Randy on TV, like, hey, I helped train him.
Used to hang out with him all the time. I've got a lot of behind the scene stories of Randy hanging out in the catwalks because he, strangely enough, had a fear of crowds at one time. So he wouldn't sit in the stands to watch his dad. I always had to take him up into the catwalks so that he could watch the indie matches.
Well, there you go. You heard it here first. Randy Orton in the catwalks. So let's get to some more modern time stuff.
Okay.
Where have you been recently? We know you wrestle for Cottage Hills Wrestling Alliance a lot.
Yeah.
How's it like working there?
It is a breath of fresh air, and quite honestly, it's the most fun I've had in 24 years with the business. These guys are incredible. They're hungry. They come to learn. They put on a phenomenal show. Not every match is 5 stars. People are going to have, off nights. I get that. But we got guys like Mizoku and the Parasite, which are an amazing tag team. These kids put it all out on the line. They're paranormal. You never know when they're going to appear or disappear. We got guys like Dragon's Guild, which is Chris Exodus and Elride, two of some of the greatest wrestlers that I've ever seen, technical-wise, but they can also fly. Trying to think of some of the other talents that we got coming through there. We got Dougie Best. We've got Logan Simmons, who is an amazing upstart. This kid, he looks like a young Terry Gordy, and I tell him all the time I would drop the Simmons and use Gordy, but he's so proud of his last name, he's not going to drop it. But looks just like Terry did when Terry first started wrestling. And then we got our annoying heel teams. We've got, the Bayou Boys, but thank God there's some problems going on there because Waylon seems to be like a nice guy, and maybe he's going to finally push Bo Dickerson out of the way and come join the right side of the tracks. I mean, we've got a show for everybody. A fan yesterday had sent me an email telling me that he loved that, guys like myself and Doc Lombardi were bringing the old school factor. And then you got the younger generation doing the high flying, and then we got a whole hardcore division. We have a women's division. We have something for every fan when they come.
The great thing about Cottage Hills too is it's so, it's affordable. It's family friendly, affordable entertainment.
Exactly. We're the cheapest ticket in town. And I'm not saying that against any other promotion because they earn the $15 and $20 tickets. But, being a father myself, I know what it's like when you're going to an event. You've already spent $200 in tickets, and then you got to eat. Your kids are going to want programs. Wrestlers are always selling merch, so you're going to want a T-shirt. So sometimes at an event, you're going to walk out spending $500 to $1,000. With our $10 ticket for adults and $5 for kids, there's a less chance of mom and daddy's wallet's going to get hit harder, and they're getting the same quality show, and we thrive on that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Looking back, we became fans right around the same time, late 80s, early 90s time frame. You look at what a wrestler was, big bodybuilder, muscle man type.
Exactly.
So it's more of the athletic style.
Mm-hmm.
Are you impressed with, how the new generation goes? Can you see the difference?
I am, because I can't do half the stuff they do. I remember in the 90s or the late 90s when I first started, a Hurricane Rana was impressive. A tilt-a-whirl head scissors was unheard of. Now these guys are doing it and like it's nothing. And now they're doing 450s and 670s and 820s and a whole other array of numbers off the top rope. Their clotheslines are harder. Their kicks are stiffer. The only thing they ain't got on me is they can't chop as hard as I do, but that comes with Native American territory. But I am impressed at the athleticism and the fact that they're not big and bulky guys. That they're just athletes. Back in the day, and I hate to use that S word, but we know what I'm talking about. That's what it was just big, swollen guys. Now today we're starting to see a little bit more natural athletes that are out there. Yeah, these guys are toned, but they're not swollen where they can't fit into the car.
Yeah.
And that's what I like, because their life is going to last a little bit longer. Their careers are going to last a little bit longer.
I mean, you even got some of the bigger guys, like your Keith Lees and guys like them who can still do some of those pretty athletic moves, and it's impressive.
Exactly. Yes. I was never one to buy into if you're 6'6", you shouldn't be doing a moonsault. If you're 300 pounds, you shouldn't. If you can do it, do it. And the fans want to see it. Believability is as far as the imagination goes. If sci-fi can invent a gun in the middle of a story, then a pro wrestler that's 300 pounds, if they can do a moonsault, then by all means get up on that rope and flip.
Exactly.
I like the impressiveness of athleticism, and athletics to me is not a height and it's not a weight. It's not even a sex for that matter. If you can pull it off, then I say go for it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move up to 2020.
Okay.
Pandemic hits. A lot of indie wrestling shuts down.
Mm-hmm.
Did you think you'd ever get back in the ring? Were you grateful for the time to heal? Any nagging injuries? How did you view it, from a wrestling standpoint?
I was more scared for the country. That was, we hadn't had a pandemic since the Black Plague. Look historically. And if I remember right, that lasted for 10 years reading about it. And I was worried for the country. Are we going to be stuck wearing gas masks? Are we forever now going to have to be 6 feet away from each other? Are we going to have to only have 10 friends over at a time when we want to have a party? As far as from a wrestling standpoint, I enjoyed the break, but the older I get, the more time my body takes to heal. But as anybody who is from age 35 up knows, if you let your body sit stagnant, it's going to heal, and then it's going to hurt like hell when you hurt it again. So I didn't like the fact that I wasn't working. That's one thing I didn't like. And I wasn't going to go out and fall on a floor, but I feared my back and knees when the pandemic was over.
All right. Well, as we wrap things up here, I got a little game we like to play called the Electric Chair.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yep. Little rapid fire game. So I'll ask the question, answer the first thing that comes to mind.
Absolutely.
So question one, what is the number one movie you can watch over and over again and not get tired of?
Well, my dear, that would be Forrest Gump.
Classic. The one movie Tom Hanks is in and doesn't get you lost.
Exactly.
Question two, would you rather have front row seats to Wrestle Kingdom or WrestleMania?
Wrestle Kingdom. I like watching something new and fresh. Mm-hmm. WrestleMania is a neat spectacle, but I want to see what's coming up next. I've already seen what we've got. Let me see what's coming up next.
Great answer. Question three, what is your favorite weapon to use in a no disqualification match?
Usually anything I can get my hands on, but a leather strap. I love using a good leather strap. Native Americans are prone to strap matches. Either that or barbed wire.
Great answer.
Yeah.
What would be your dream vacation?
I would love to go back to Washington, Oregon. It is so beautiful out there. It's absolutely incredible. I love the rain. So anytime it comes pouring down, either that or I'd love to go spend some more time in Mississippi. I've got a lot of family in Mississippi, and it's beautiful down there.
Okay. What is the best looking title belt that you've ever seen?
I was a big fan of the big gold, but the United States title from WCW looked good. Any title from WCW from 95 till the end looked really good. I don't like hokey belts. I don't like the new spinner belts.
Yeah.
But strangely enough, I wasn't a fan of the Winged Eagle, which seems to be everybody's favorite. I did not like that one.
And finally, pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Oh, God, no. I'll pick it off.
Alrighty. So where can our fans find more about you, Jeremy?
They can always find me with the Cottage Hills Wrestling Alliance on Facebook and on our YouTube. They can also look me up on Facebook. I have a like page, which is the Native Nightmare, Jeremy Lightfoot. Or, if they're a trustworthy fan that I can trust isn't going to stalk me, they can go ahead and send me an ad as well. I'm on TikTok, the Jeremy Lightfoot 0. And that's about as far as social media as I go. The other stuff kind of scares me.
We'll throw some links in our video description as well. Until
Absolutely.
next time, Jeremy, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Thank you.